And all of a sudden, they make a move. And if I'm not mistaken, Zach, they now have 2 offensive coordinators.
Mike Sullivan, the quarterback's coach, is going to be doing the bulk, you know how they love saying the bulk of the play calling, but he's also getting help from Eddie Faulkner, the running back coach. So I would say it's technically kind of like a coordinator by committee, but it does seem like Mike Sullivan's going to be calling the plays. And this just puts so much pressure on Kenny Pickett. And this isn't even, I mean, we have guys like Dan Orlovsky talking about this, where it's the scheme was so bad where now it's in the situation of Kenny Pickett. This is kind of the last chance for him because it has not been good. And this is that moment where now it's, okay, was it Matt Canada? If Kenny Pickett shows even just steps towards, oh, this is the guy we thought we were getting, I think it completely changes how the Steelers view their position as a franchise with their quarterback, what their offseason is. So
yeah, I mean, we got a couple people. You brought up Dan Orlovsky, then Ryan Clark. We actually have a little video of them talking about this. So Brad, I think you have it. And also before that point, you made the point, Brad, and you can start this video. Kenny Pickett has the lowest touchdown percentage to pass attempts.
Yes.
What was that number again?
1.9%. That's the lowest since the merger.
That's incredible. And again, we're going to find out more. But, hey, take a listen to here as we have a couple breakdowns of what just transpired with Pittsburgh.
All right, we got to figure out if this is Kenny Pickett or if this has been the offense as a whole before we go further as a football program.
Yeah, so it's the right move. It's the necessary move. And that's not like, we all understand firing people isn't fun. The reality is, if I don't, produce for ESPN, they're going to fire me too. So that's just the nature. We all know that getting into the real world, that's part of it. So, but it was the necessary move. Wow. There's too many instances where this offense, and you guys have had me layer out the predictability, the lack of explosion, the never creating an advantage. Like there's so many flaws within this scheme. Okay. So at some point you have to sit there and say, are we helping the players or not? I think that's what it really comes down to. Were they ever creating an advantage for the players? More often than not, that answer was no. So you have to move on. I think this is a little bit of, hey, Kenny Pickett, and if you were going to ask me, like, what's the one thing that Kenny Pickett has to do now? Kenny Pickett is going to have to, in however many games they have left, I think 6, he's 7, he's going to have to prove that he is willing and able to throw the ball past 5 yards down the field well.
This is what we're going to figure out. And Dan, it's great hearing from a quarterback's perspective.
Yeah.
So we'll dive all into this, but we have one more clip, correct, about with Ryan Clark?
Yeah.
So Dan talked about it from this point of production. Now, Ryan Clark is going to give a little bit of different angle that we'll react to on the other side.
Sometimes it is addition by subtraction. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have now subtracted what they need to subtract. Yeah, we went to Cleveland and got beat by a guy that we just know by 3 letters, DTR. But we have gone from Canada to America. Matt Canada is no longer the offensive coordinator. We're not just going to throw the ball to the sideline and play wish football. I wish we scored a touchdown. We're going to run the football better with Jalen Warren. We're going to use the middle of the field now that Freiermuth is healthy. And at the least, we're going to put an offense on the field that looks like an NFL offense, and then TJ Watt and the boys can go crazy on defense. So I know y'all want to sit around here and talk about, Kansas City, Buffalo if they get in. What about if we get in, Chan?
It's going to be a
we
fun
got
week.
6
it's
championships.
It's going to be a fun week.
Agree with everything he said up until the last thing.
Yeah.
I just don't think they have enough talent on the offensive side to be but everything else, 100%. I mean, that both of them said, both Orlovsky and Ryan Clark went in on how they didn't ever bring up, I guess, anything that pointed to the players. They just tore apart the scheme. And these are guys that know the schemes and in depth have watched this film. And Orlovsky, both were like disgusted by the scheme, how they're not using guys to go to the inside. They're only throwing these 5 yards to the out. And I think that was one of those biggest things I took away from that was from a player standpoint. A lot of guys will go in when something like this happens and goes, yeah, but it wasn't all them. Like the players have to make plays. They were blatantly saying, he didn't put them in position to make plays. There were no plays to be made by what he was calling. So that's where now we're in the position of, like Orlovsky said, hey, Kenny, can you prove to us that you can be this quarterback? Or when we're on the clock in the first round this year, do we need to consider Michael Penix and them?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, hey, you know what the other part, they brought up a name, or Pat Fryermuth.
Yeah.
Like, dude's a good tight end.
Very
I know
good.
he's been injured this year, and I was looking up to make sure because we try to get our stats right here. We try. But Fryermuth had 732 receiving yards last year. That was third best on the team.
How many games was that in?
And he played 16. Right?
So missed a game. Oh, yeah.
So, but this year, he's played in 5 games. He's had a lot of injuries. Do you guys want to guess how many yards in 5 games for Fryermuth?
He probably doesn't even have 100.
That's correct. He has 9 catches for 60 yards. A guy that was third on your team in receiving yards with 732. And again, tight ends aren't supposed to, we get used to Kelsey and Mark Andrews and Kittle, who have been eclipsing 1,000 yards or approaching it, whatever it may be. Having 700 yards for a tight end is very, very good.
Yes.
And Fryermuth opens up the middle of the field, and they haven't used him.
No, they haven't,
at all. So I'm baffled there because I'm sitting there and going, man,
my jaw dropped. I had no clue.
George Pickens hasn't. I mean, he has the best playmaker on your team. You're not feeding him the ball. I don't understand what's going on there either.
Well, and that's another case with George Pickens. He had a stretch of 2 games where he had 130 and 107 back to back. He had another 100-yard game the second week of the season against the Browns. But here's his stat since his last big game against the Rams. You guys ready for this? 1 catch for 22 yards, 2 catches for -1 against the Titans on Thursday night, 3 catches for 45 against the Pack, and 4 catches for 38 yards.
Well, and that one play, that one game against the Browns was that big chunk of that was a 73-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Just one play. So you can kind of almost take that away too.
Yeah. So you're looking at that and going, Deontay Johnson's a fantastic route runner. He had problems with drops. George Pickens, talented player.
Yeah.
Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, like, and when we're talking about this more and Fryermuth, like, they got some guys.
Yeah.
They actually sneakily might have one of the better packages of weapons on their team if you're looking at it. Two solid running backs. You can say what you want about Najee, but bruiser, explosive,
2 very solid running backs.
Yeah. 2 solid wide receivers, and you have a solid tight end. And yet the Steelers are one of the worst offenses. So it should be good. What we were talking about this earlier before the show, Orlovsky then brought it up, the production. If you don't play well or you don't coach well, someone loses their job.
Yeah.
Canada lost his job. Pickett's job's on the line moving forward. But what's their upcoming schedule? Because it's the easiest in the AFC North.
Bengals,
Without
Arizona,
Burrow, obviously.
Without Burrow, right. So like that should be an easier game for them. Arizona, which, hey, Kyler Murray's been back, so they've been a different team since then. New England, that should be a walkthrough. Indianapolis has been, they've been on and off too, so that should be a winnable game for the Steelers if they do everything right. Cincinnati again, Seattle, and then us, the Baltimore Ravens. So I mean, it's easy. They could easily win 10 games going into the end of the season.
I don't think it should be legal for any broadcast station to be able to morally play any Patriots quarterback on that roster currently versus the Steelers defense, because that is going to be horrific to watch. That Patriots offense is so bad. Maybe Bailey Zappi helps them, but Mac Jones or him versus that defense is going to be Patriots or Steelers. Even if Kenny Pickett doesn't take that next step, can win that 21-0 off 3 defenses.
That might be the worst viewed game of all time.
Yeah, that's going to be bad.
Well, and here's the other part of this, because I wanted to pull this up for context. The Steelers going into this game, they are 28th in the NFL in points, 16.6 points per game. The only teams below them, Carolina, the Jets, New England, and the Giants. The Giants and New England having really rough years. The Jets now, the wheels are starting to fall off there, and Carolina, it speaks for themselves. So you're looking at how far they are down, and they're 6-4.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. And then for Cleveland's sake, and we already talked about Baltimore still got to play San Fran, Jacksonville. You got to play the Chargers. You got to play the Dolphins, and you got Pittsburgh again. The Browns got to go play hot Mr. Unlimited and Danger Russ out in Denver. They got to play the Jags, the Texans. Those are some tough games for Cleveland.
Yeah.
The Pittsburgh could sneak in, but they're going to have to figure things out offensively.